In today's video, we are going to be taking a look, of course, at the current conditions, but also two or more potentially very major eastern United States snowstorms that we have on the way, followed by extremely cold air. Now, let's get into these current conditions real quickly before we dive into all that, because there is obviously a whole lot to talk about. We do see that there is a more minor system here across the northwest, also similarly up here in the northeast. But the main event here is going to be across the middle of the country. This looks just like a face right now, but we do see that there is a very, very major strong system here. And this is throwing severe weather up here across some of the central plains here, diving into some of the deeper south there. And then we have a snowstorm event happening here for some of the more northern plains and some of the Rockies. So let's start out in the northwest here and we'll work our way eastward. This is kind of just a cold front extending down from a low that is further up the coast in Canada. Somewhere up here actually is where that's at. So we have this cold front extending down, and this is bringing onshore some showers, of course, for Washington, Oregon, California. This is for some snowfall for the Olympic Mountains, the Cascades here. We see plenty of this activity. Now, as we look at the more rainfall areas in here, moderate precipitation happening. This is where we're seeing lower elevation areas, obviously more coastal regions. Now, as we work our way a little bit further eastward, we can see that there is some major snowfall happening across states like Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, and it's swirling in this direction here. We can see it blasting northward here across Kansas, central Nebraska, and this is bringing very heavy snowfall, especially in Nebraska here, and portions of very far northern Kansas. In these blues, we're seeing whiteout conditions, so we're watching for that across all of these regions here. Anywhere in the whites there, we are seeing more moderate to heavy snowfall, but not quite whiteout conditions, so the blues are going to be just a bit heavier there. We can see there's no shortage of heavy precipitation moving into this region, as we have just tons of moisture exploding from this storm system, so that is going to continue to be a major snowstorm there. We can see more showery activity across some of the Ohio Valley and northern plains, but it's as we see south of the warm front here. I've talked about this being boxed in before. That's kind of how I've called it. But south of that warm front, which I think is going to be more located up here at this point, so something like this is what we're seeing. South of the warm front and east of that cold front is where we're seeing potential for severe weather. So anywhere in here is the general area that we're watching for that severe weather and thunderstorm activity today across Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, even into Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi throughout later today. This is certainly bound to be a pretty big severe weather day, and probably what has been the I don't know, third or fourth, maybe even fifth severe weather event this January so far, which is crazy. I mean, this would be pretty busy for a summer month perhaps, or a fall month, but this has been a winter month seeing tons of severe weather. We can even see some tornadic cells here across portions of eastern Texas, northern Louisiana, and southern Arkansas in here. So we are watching for those as well in this warm sector, again, where that cold front is located. I think the actual location of this cold front, unless these are just outpacing that cold front, I want to say they're probably right there, that cold front, and a lot of those storms are happening along that at this point. The warm front is well north of here, so certainly a whole lot of severe weather. We can even see some showers and thunderstorms well ahead of this activity as well happening. And then as we work our way towards the northeast, we can just see some passing rain and snow showers happening for a lot of these areas in New England and the northeast in general. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is move on and take a look at the upcoming pattern. Now, quickly, I want to just address something. Yesterday, I got the most comments I've probably ever gotten, a majority of which were accusing me of being a liar, saying that there is no East Coast snowstorm, so why am I saying that, and all sorts of things of that nature, because I said the East is finally set to get major snowstorms, question mark. Here you can clearly see at 8 minutes 8:44 here, a major East Coast snowstorm happening here, and that is why I called this video, the East is finally set to get major snowstorms, question mark, because obviously there is still some question marks to it, but we did see that within the video. I think what happens is people only make their way about a minute or two into the video and then just decide that I'm lying, and that's why I get a lot of comments like that. And the reason I didn't bring this up at the very beginning of this video and I waited till after the current conditions tab is because I wanted to kind of prove my point. Likely you will see that there is comments below on this particular video as well, this video that I'm making right now, that are saying I'm a liar, there is no east snowstorms, clickbait, all this stuff. And clearly, I'm proving that in yesterday's video, there was a major snowstorm there in the east. And in today's video, we're actually going to take a look at two eastern major winter storms that are upcoming that we see on all major models at this point. Now, are they guaranteed to happen? Of course not. Of course, they're not guaranteed to happen, but the likelihood is increasing every single day. And actually, things are looking more and more promising by the day. We're even seeing signs that February could feature the polar vortex, as we have a certain event happening in the very northern regions there in the North Pole that indicate that that polar vortex is going to become very weak, which is the opposite of probably what you're thinking. What it actually means is that when that is weak, it actually spreads to portions further south. So we want a weaker polar vortex in the Arctic regions that spreads that polar vortex to other regions of the northern hemisphere, like, for instance, the eastern United States. So there are some certain promising things happening here. Now let's dive into what this video is actually about here. So let's take a look at this European model. Storm 1 moves out. And even this is a semi-moderate snowfall event for New England, which is more than we could say before. So for Friday into Saturday, we do see that happening. Now, right around the 22nd is when we start to get a little bit of some colder air working its way into the eastern United States here, especially this corridor here that I've drawn out. And we do see that now the Pacific is basically getting cut off, and we're seeing mostly this Gulf energy joining up with the cold air. So this is what we're seeing here. We see this first storm moves up, and clearly this is a major snowfall event, a major winter storm in general. So again, I'm not lying when I say that there is eastern snowstorms coming up, and major ones at that. There is nothing that is a lie about that or clickbait. We are clearly seeing it here only 123 hours out, which isn't very far at all. More moderate, if anything. We see that this continues to bring snowfall there to the northeast. Becomes a little bit more of a coastal low, but that's a 979 millibar low pressure center there around the 20th to 23rd time frame. Now, meanwhile, we have storm number 2 already setting up here. So again, a very active pattern. We see this one rising up, and we're going to see models kind of differ on this one. This one is obviously a little bit further out, around the 25th, 26th time frame. We see it moving up like that, and we see this one becomes a lot more of an inland storm here, but still major snowfall happening in the eastern half of the nation, as we get a 988 millibar low pressure center very far inland. But look at how this follows up. We see a bit of a positive PNA, and then this massive trough here after the 25th on our European model. Again, the most accurate model out there. Look at this too. Take this with a grain of salt. I'm sure this won't happen, but there's enough cold air to where this model is even showing snowfall, major snowfall for southern Texas. That's obviously not the most likely scenario, but we are seeing this show up here. And if this energy continues to ride along this jet stream, we can continue to see potential snowstorms here, and the potential just increases as this model run goes on. So this is a very promising look. Now, quickly, we're going to dive into the precipitation and snowfall, but we will take a look at the GFS and Canadian as well. Now, for the total precipitation, anywhere in the whites here are practically no precipitation. Your grays are 1/10 of an inch or less. Your greens are 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Blues 1/2 an inch to an inch, your yellows 1 inch to 2 inches, reds 2 to 5 inches there, and then your browns 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. And we can see that pretty much all of that activity is going to be exclusive here for this eastern United States, the southeast up through the northeast. Here we can tell the flow of things is just like this along that jet stream. So tons of storminess over the next 10 days for this eastern corridor here that I've circled in. Still a bit of activity here in the northwest, but nothing compared to what they were seeing, as that Pacific jet kind of just gets shut off very suddenly. Now, total snowfall here, we could tell there is clearly 1 to 3 feet of snowfall expected in this corridor here, which happens to be the eastern United States, as I've said in the titles. But that was just clickbait, so we'll just ignore this. We can see anywhere in the grays is a dusting, if anything. Blues 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purple 6 to 10. Pinks 10 to 20 there. Again, we're seeing this throughout the Ohio Valley, some of the Mid-Atlantic, and then even up through the northeast there. And then pastel blues are going to be anywhere from 20 to 35 inches, which we see a lot of this up here for northern New England, a lot of the areas near the Great Lakes. And then your pastel pinks are 35 inches plus. We're seeing this for our Adirondacks, Green Mountains, and White Mountains here, which is certainly a whole lot more snowfall than we were seeing, and it's a very major amount for a 10-day period regardless. So this area continues to look more and more promising. with every single run. So that is what the models are calling for. So I'm not lying when I say that. That is what we're seeing here as a likely possible scenario here. So we're watching for this very, very closely. Now, GFS model, let's watch it again. We play through this. Storm number 1, a little bit further inland here. We've seen this with this model a lot, but we're still seeing a major snowstorm in this area here, which again, just happens to be the eastern United States. Storm number 2 actually on this model looks a lot more promising, which is the opposite of the European. It develops a little bit more offshore, which is usually more favorable for the eastern United States. And we see this snowfall corridor in here set up. Certainly a very major snowstorm setting up there for a lot of areas that have been in a snow drought. So we watch that happen. And just like that European model, look at this. We see a positive PNA develop and then this huge trough in the east. So we have 2 out of 3 models so far showing it. And we're going to look at the third in a minute and see if it agrees. And we do get some energy moving along that jet stream here. But look at how it just glides south. The trough is almost too strong for this. And this energy just moves along. It does not ride up the coast. So we'll have to see if that's a possible scenario moving on. And then we kind of get back into a west and east pattern here where there's a little bit more of a southeast ridge influence to start February. But of course, we expect to go back and forth. I want to take a look at the total snowfall on this model as well, because this was obviously extreme as well. We see again just 1 to 3 feet of snowfall in general for a lot of the Northeast here. So will it make your snowfall to this point in the winter above average? Of course it won't. But it's also a million times more snowfall than you've seen before this point for a lot of folks, because many of these folks have not seen snowfall so far. So that is really what we're tracking here. That is really what we're looking at. Now, the Canadian model here, let's roll through it. This model has continued actually to be the more Debbie Downer model, is kind of what I've called it. We get the Southeast Ridge getting a lot more of an influence in here, but actually this kind of bodes well for some of these more northern areas, as it seems to want to do a track like this and still bring a very major snowstorm for the Northeast there. Yeah, so all 3 models have a major Northeast snowstorm. And then here's storm number 2. Yeah, another major snowstorm there. So all 3 models have 2 major snowstorms within the next 10 days right now. And then this model might even be the coldest after all that's said and done. So we'll take a look at that in a second. I do want to take a look at the total snowfall real quickly. So again, yeah, we see 1 to 3 feet of snowfall for a lot of these areas. Very, very interesting. I want to see the temperature anomalies just out of curiosity here at the end of this model run. Yeah, that is very cold temperatures compared to normal. And also another thing that bodes sort of well is it seems like this trough peaks further west here over the central United States. And this would allow for storms to track up the coast and bring more snowstorms with this type of a pattern. When you see the trough doing this, where it tracks way offshore and there's plenty of Arctic air out here too, we see these storms just track way out to sea where it brings, snowfall here for nobody. Boats, that's it. Whales, that's who gets the snowstorms when we get cold air like that. But we see here this is a more favorable pattern. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this very interesting video. I've gotten a little bit defensive in this video just because I think it's a little bit ridiculous. Some of the comments I've been getting were clearly the issue isn't my video. It's clearly just that you're watching 2 out of 12 minutes of the video. So yeah, before you comment, make sure you watch the whole video because sometimes I like to save things for the end. Obviously, that makes sense. So I usually try to save the bigger, more eventful things for the end. That's just how YouTube works. So anyway, guys, I know that's a small percentage of you leaving comments like that. So I do appreciate all of you, though. And look, I love doing what I do. I love the weather, and I'm going to continue to do it regardless. And all I can do is show you guys what the models are showing. That's all I can do. Anyway, be sure to subscribe. We do upload every single day, and we will get to the bottom of all of this. I am excited that there's 2 major snowstorms that look to be on the way. Obviously, the first of which is going to be much more likely to happen. The second one is still looking relatively likely considering the range. And then afterwards, all 3 of these models showing Arctic air moving in afterwards. There's a lot more to look forward to at this back end of January than there was in the beginning. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below if you watched the entire video. And I will see you guys in the next video.